Well, Stephen McCabe is a political economist and associate professor at Birmingham City University. He joins me live from that fair city right now. Stephen McCabe, let's address that togetherness feeling, shall we? Divisions are still running very deep in this Conservative Party in 2022. Can Rishi Sunak patch all that up?
Well, I think with great difficulty, he inherits a party which is ridden by these factions, which I think for the time being that they're all going to sort of step away from because, of course, what they fear most is a general election. But whether he can keep it going for another 2 years, because, of course, that's how long the Parliament has got to run, and the latest they can go to is January 2025. Yeah, that's a really sort of moot question. If he can do that, then he's more of a sort of an acrobat than I think people give him credit for.
We come back to that famous mantra, it's the economy, stupid. It really matters to the UK this autumn, doesn't it? He's got some different ideas to Liz Truss, ideas that he thinks will work. Will they?
Well, okay. I mean, the point is, though, that we're not absolutely sure what he's going to do because, of course, the last time we really heard him speak in any substantive way was during the leadership campaign, which was, a couple of months ago. And, of course, 7 weeks ago today, Liz Truss won that competition and Rishi Sunak effectively disappeared. What we do know, of course, that sort of what that heralded was the sort of the Trussonomics and, of course, that sort of appalling budget, which, of course, I think the sort of Tories would like to expunge from history of the 23rd of September. So in the sense that, of course, that's going to be reversed. But he inherits a much worse situation than had he become leader 7 weeks ago. What we expect is some pretty savage cuts, which will probably get, we will indeed get a week today, assuming, of course, that the statement goes ahead by the Chancellor, who I fully expect to be sort of Jeremy Hunt, who was brought in, if we sort of remember, to replace the sacked Kwasi Kwarteng, who was very close to Liz Truss ideologically. And I'm sorry to keep harping on about the previous incumbent, but what Rishi Sunak has to do is to somehow restore financial confidence and competence in the British government, and that's going to be a really big job. And more particularly, the reason, of course, he's been brought in by the Conservatives is to save their skins, because as I said a couple of moments ago, there's the fear of a general election, in which case, if that were to happen in any time soon, then there would be something of a wipeout. So what they hope is that with a bit of stability and sanity, dare I say it, there might be some sort of hope that the election defeat, and I think that's what it's looking at the moment, will not be as great as some are indicating.
Now, on a personal level, his critics actually within the Tory party and within the opposition parties are pointing to his phenomenal wealth. I mean, his family is worth literally hundreds of millions of dollars. Can he really identify with families in much more modest circumstances when you're that wealthy?
That's a really good question. I mean, let's face it, MPs are known for, that their salaries are way above the national average at £80,000. So I can't do the calculation, but I suppose that's close to $100,000 a year. He's worth something like £730 million, allegedly, worth more than King Charles. As to whether he can really empathise with the poor and dispossessed, who, let's face it, of course, have got very much poorer under this government. And again, let me point out the Conservative governments have been in power since 2010, and Rishi Sunak was the Chancellor for the last a couple of years until he famously resigned on the 5th of July in exasperation at Boris Johnson. But hey, that's another story. Really difficult question. He's going to be taking some really, really difficult decisions, or at least he's going to be part of that. I think his hands are pretty much tied by what he'll be hearing from Jeremy Hunt. Although Rishi Sunak is, of course, a financial genius, we're told. But nonetheless, he's going to be presiding over a really difficult period of what we suspect will be austerity Mark II, which we had on the coalition government going back to 2010 to 2015, when the Conservatives were in coalition with the Liberal Democrats. So I think the poor people are going to feel an awful lot worse I don't see their difficulties getting any sort of better. So he's got to look after them. And also what we've got, if you like, is the middle income earners who are going to be sort of squeezed from sort of high inflation, which we've got at the moment. They're looking at sort of paying much higher sort of energy costs after sort of April, because the energy support scheme ends at that point. So bills could go up by an average of £2,000 a year. So if you do the calculation, that's going to be a big blow. And then on top of that, those people who sort of come off what we call our fixed rate mortgages are going to be sort of paying a lot more for their mortgages. So I think there's big problems. And of course, the biggest issue he has, his party are looking to him to restore the feel good factor that sort of Boris Johnson was able to sort of bring, the Heineken politician who could reach the past other sort of politician that could not reach. And dare I say it, people do not tend to vote for governments that make them feel poorer.
Steve McCabe, thank you very much indeed. Well, as we